Hey guys, in this video I'll be revisiting the 2000 British Grand Prix, a somewhat unknown show that had very impressive versions of Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler. These two placed first and second respectively. However, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at what they brought to the stage to see just how close it actually was. Now, this is definitely one of the most underrated shows of the early 2000s, as the lineup consisted of some very famous names who all brought great packages to the stage. It was also the show where Jay really got his name out there, as this show was held about a week after the 2000 Olympia. Going from 8th to placing 2nd to the reigning champion definitely gave him publicity and motivated him to push harder. Now, before the video does start, a like and sub would be much appreciated as it helps out the channel tremendously. With that all being said, let's get into this video. The first pose, the front double, is a great pose for these two. Both have large quads, relatively small and controlled midsections, huge arms with peaked biceps, and great conditioning. My eyes are drawn to Ronnie though for his larger arms, longer quads, and great X-frame. However, Jay's strided quads and superb detail are just as eye-catching. Here's a second look to get a real feel of the details and conditioning that these two had. Here you can really notice the dominance of Ronnie in the arm department, showcasing much more separation and dryness throughout the arm, not to mention the superior inner triceps. Jay undeniably has a better midsection, pulling a semi-vacuum to hide the actual width in that area. However, his flow isn't nearly as good as it looked in 2001 or 2003. He does have his signature cut quads, great lats, and a thick chest. However, he gives up a lot of size in the quads and arms to Ronnie, surprisingly. Although Ronnie may not have the prettiest midsection, it isn't as much of an eyesore as it would become, obviously, not being much of a problem overall in my opinion. Now, I'd give Ronnie the win here. However, Jay looks rather impressive too, so let me know down below who you would have in this pose. The front lat spread is a hard pose to discern the details for Ronnie, as the competitors in the background really slightly obscure his silhouette, and the quality of the footage isn't doing him any favors. Regardless, you can see just how thick his chest, arms, and delts are, and how much size he has over Jay in the quads. Jay does have a more aesthetic yet just as wide midsection, greatly defined and detailed quads, and superior calves. However, his upper body doesn't look nearly as massive, especially in the lats and in the delts. Now, this clear shot reveals the size discrepancy between the two, as Ronnie has so much thickness in the upper body, and his quads appear larger and more swept. He also presents more mass in the lats themselves, and looks wider upstairs overall. While Jay's silhouette is great, I just can't stop looking at Ronnie's insane conditioning density and sheer mass everywhere. I'd definitely go with Ronnie here, since Jay doesn't have that wow factor that Ronnie just has for days. Like the last pose, the side chest is hard to judge as the video footage is rather poor. That being said, you can see both present solid size in the chest, delt, and side leg. However, Ronnie appears more conditioned and detailed in those areas overall, and has a better arm. Now, this clear side-by-side shot shows you the same thing I was just talking about, as Ronnie is better in the arm, delt, and side leg, whether it be for conditioning or size reasons. The only area I see Jay winning in would be the midsection, but even then, Ronnie is tight and controlled in that area and has a lot of detail as well. Jay seems to not have that, great density and muscle maturity that he would have later on, which makes sense as he's around 10 years younger than Ronnie, and both are relatively young compared to what they would become later on. Now, as Ronnie walks away with this pose, in my opinion, Jay doesn't look all that bad, but, Ronnie is just more detailed, more massive, and freakier overall. The rear double is actually a lot closer of a pose than I expected, as Jay's conditioning from behind almost matches that of Ronnie's, or that's what it sort of appears like. He has great calves and hamstrings, solid glute feathering, and an extremely thick, wide, and detailed back. Even his arms and delts look great here, doing battle with Ronnie's tremendous upper body. Ronnie does appear thicker in the back, probably because he squeezes his shoulder blades together, leading him to not really appearing any wider than Jay because of it. He definitely is more conditioned in the glutes and doesn't have that film of water on his lower body that Jay does. However, size-wise, the two are neck and neck. This second shot shows you that the conditioning disparity might have been much larger than previously shown, as Ronnie's glutes, hamstrings, and back all appear extremely ripped and have zero signs of any water. Jay, on the other hand, has a layer of water across his entire lower body and in parts of his back as well, creating a thicker skin sort of look that hides detail. This footage also reveals that Ronnie was much thicker in the upper body, especially in the lats and lower back, and coupled with his phenomenal conditioning would definitely win against Jay. The rear lat spread is a bit closer of a pose than the last one, as now that the arms are out of the equation, Jay can definitely be more competitive upstairs. His back showcases considerable size in the traps and lats, comparable with to Ronnie, and solid detail overall. His legs, while not the most conditioned as we saw in the last pose, are large and do show some detail. That being said, Ronnie presents so much more conditioning overall from head to toe, especially in the glutes and in the back, having intricate striations all over and a perfectly carved Christmas tree. Although Ronnie's details are all washed out by the bright lights in this secondary footage, you can definitely notice the difference in lower body conditioning. I'm showing you guys this footage for that reason, as the hamstrings and glutes of Ronnie are twice as defined and more developed than Jay's, and even his calves look rather competitive and impressive. While Jay may have a great amount of mass on his frame and solid conditioning relative to himself, Ronnie is the Mr. Olympia champion for a reason, showcasing how far ahead he was in terms of conditioning and size. Here's the side tricep, a solid shot for Ronnie and a stellar one for Jay. Ronnie actually looks great here, presenting the roundest delt, a thick chest, and so much more deep separation in that side leg. His midsection is also controlled, and his tricep doesn't look that bad compared to Jay's, and his flow overall is rather good. Jay definitely smokes Ronnie in the aesthetics though, having one of the best midsections and presentations ever in this pose. His arm is undeniably presented better in this shot, and his tricep is far more impressive from a genetics and size standpoint. Combine that with a thick chest, strided delt, and solid side leg of his own, you get a rather easy win for Jay in my opinion. Then again, you could argue that Ronnie's sheer size, objectively better lower half, and great presentation would be enough to win. However, I do feel like Jay's aesthetics and overall flow are too much for Ronnie to handle. The ab and thigh is the last mandatory pose of this comparison, as the most muscular was not a mandatory pose in 2000. This is definitely going to be an easy win for Jay yet again, as frontally his conditioning was perfect, especially in those deeply cut abs and feathered quads. Ronnie is peeled as well, showcasing more detail in that midsection than I've really ever seen, and executes the pose rather well as well. He actually has a better V-taper due to those great lats and his wider frame, and his massive quads bow out to create a very impressive silhouette. While Jay isn't the best in overall proportions or shape, his midsection is ultra detailed and he doesn't give up much size to Ronnie either. His conditioning and definition appear more refined as well, making me inclined to give him the win. Now, we do have the most muscular, although it wasn't a mandatory pose. I won't be judging it or factoring it into the comparison for that reason, however, it's still fun to look at from a fan perspective. Ronnie absolutely looks massive and freaky though, showcasing incredible size, detail, and separation, but his lack of midsection control contrasts greatly with Jay's. Jay doesn't have the same thin skin on the arms, chest, or delts. However, his razor-sharp midsection and perfectly detailed quads compensate for that. He definitely isn't as large as Ronnie in the chest or arms. However, I like his shape more than Ronnie's, especially for that controlled and defined midsection. Ultimately though, Ronnie's sheer mass and conditioning combo would be too much for Jay to handle in my opinion, leading to a rather decisive win for Ronnie. Alright guys, that's about it for this video. In summary, Ronnie won this comparison 5-2, however, poses like the side tricep, front double, and front lat spread could be debatable. Overall, I had a lot of fun watching video footage and seeing this rather unknown show, as these two really brought great renditions of their physiques to the stage. Anyways, let me know down below what you thought of this comparison, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.